Oh. Next we have Michael Angarano. He plays Sam Amarante. Gabriel Luna. He plays Rafael Tovar. And showrunner, writer, and executive producer Patrick Macmanus.
Coming to you.
Yeah, come close to me.
I'm sorry.
I know.
You're stuck with me.
I'm stuck with you.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a nice theater.
I know.
I didn't even know this existed.
It's really nice.
It is really
Very
nice.
cozy.
Yeah.
Hello, gentlemen.
Hi.
Hi.
So, Patrick, let's start with you. What was it about the John Wayne Gacy case that made you want to delve into this and make a series out of it?
Absolutely nothing.
There
At all.
Good place to start.
Yeah. We're gonna start this one strong. I didn't want to do it at all, and I specifically said no a couple of times. But UCP and Peacock, I've been very grateful to be in business with them for a long time. So when they came the third time, I said I should probably take a look. And they sent me the documentary, which is excellent on Peacock if you want to watch it. But genuinely, the documentary did not change my mind in any way, shape, or form. It was very Gacy forward, and it's excellent. It's unbelievable. But then I said to them, okay, well, I'll do it, but if I could focus on the victims and the families and the police and the lawyers. And I really did think that they were going to pass on me. I thought I was going to get out of it. And they said yes. And to their credit, they have supported that every step of the way ever since. And so it was when we started delving into trying to figure out how to do those things, because I didn't know what any of that really meant. And we really discovered the idea of doing these short stories, which was heavily focused on the victims, which you did not see in the pilot. It really starts in episode 2. That it became something that I knew that we could do something special with, and so I keep saying I did not set out to make something special. In fact, I set out to not make it at all.
And how'd that work out for you?
Yeah, here I am. I got lost. I'm here on stage now. But then it became something truly, truly special, and it really is. And I think that the proof is in the pudding as it relates to how the success that it has had on Peacock, the success that it's had in the press. That I think people have understood what we were trying to do, and we just keep spreading the word, trying to get more people to tune in, because I think that genuinely, and we will rely on people like you to do so, that there's a lot of people who are afraid to watch true crime for reasons they don't want to see the salacious, gratuitous side, and we're trying to spread the word to those people that this is for them, because it really is more of a drama than it is a piece of true crime.
And having seen all 8 episodes, I can definitely vouch for that. I mean, I think it was really well done the way you dove into it, and this isn't a typical true crime story in that fashion. I'd like to hear from each of the actors too. What drew you to the role? How much you knew about the story going into it? So, Gabriel, why don't you start?
I was in Vancouver, coming off of I had wrapped. I had about a week left on The Last of Us. Bella busted her nose. So I had to stay an extra 2 weeks. She was fighting, and I was about to go home, come here, and then I got the call that Patrick had this project and that he had kind of tailored this role for me, and that was really, of course, very flattering, and that was. But at the same time, I think I had the same reaction that Patrick did. I think we all were. A little tentative in the sense that it's well tread ground, and we, you don't want to run the risk of glorifying these people, and I think everybody was coming at it from that angle. But once he sent me the first 3 scripts, I realized what his intentions were, and I loved Detective Tovar because he was just an ordinary kind of hero, and kind of on the other side of a lot of the characters I play, which have the tendency to be kind of invulnerable and heroic in a way that's not real. And this guy was afraid and has a family and could see the dangers that this type of person existing in the community would pose for his own son. And I think Patrick, when writing it, he has 2 young boys himself, and you have this. You have this, your instincts, your protective nature, all of these, everything that you want, the safety, the the safety of your family could be in jeopardy. And it could come from the most seemingly kind of benign and various kind of source. All the potential dangers. So I loved all this. I loved all this about who Tovar was. He was just an ordinary man who got thrust into this really extraordinary circumstance. And I was kind of on board at that point, and very much in the same way as the days would go on and the weeks would go on, it just got more and more evident that we were doing something that none of us expected, and it was affecting us in a way that none of us expected. So, I'm very proud to kind of sit here now, having seen what we made.
Michael, you want to talk about Sam?
This project probably came at a very bad time for me personally. It was not an ideal time in terms of my wife had just had our second child, and she was born in August, and I would have had to go off and shoot this from September to February, which is unideal. And
are you still married?
we are, fortunately. By the skin of our teeth. Thank you, Air Canada. For many a mile. The truth is, I was hesitant to even look at it, and once I did, I circumstantially my own into Sam, which was, in completely different from the conflict that he faces throughout the course of the show, which is this great ethical dilemma that is like a geyser and a wellspring of conflict that is never ending. That's kind of the center of his character. It's this like gray area that he just lives in. It's personal ambition and it's career versus home, and how there's both complement each other and both are in conflict with each other. I read the scenes for Patrick, and I just felt like I just get it. I just get Sam. I just get where he is, and I get where he's at. Again, totally different circumstances, but I just found, for me personally as an actor, I've never been able to quite play a character as flawed and rich as Sam. So once I got the part, there were some talks at home, and I was really excited.
Yeah.
And Chris, can you talk about Bill?
Yeah, I could talk about Bill. Oh, funky cunky, which you didn't see in this episode at all. I'm sure when it came out, they were like, "Who? Is he in this?"
We're just going to tempt them to
keep
watch
watching.
Keep watching.
Patrick and I go back 25 years now. When we first met, we were.
You were my first Hollywood crush.
That's right. That's right. We were young men.
That's God honest truth. Yeah, really.
And our first attempt at working together was thwarted by the pandemic. And so when he called, I was over the moon to get a chance to work with him. And then I read the scripts.
And you still did it.
And I still did it. I was like, I'm not in the first one, so that's going to be a problem. But I'll do it. No, but I was also a new father. When he first talked to me about the project a couple of years ago, I was a brand new dad, and addressing this type of material seemed queasy to me at best. All of us, or a lot of us, had young kids, including Michael Chernus, an 18-month-old, and so it's heavy business to attempt to balance both of those existences.
But it was fun on-set banter, a lot of baby gear talk.
Yeah, a lot of baby gear.
Between setups.
A lot of advice. But as far as getting involved, I've always had a curiosity with these subject matters. And I never knew quite why until more recently, getting into my therapeutic years. But kind of coincidentally, there's an author on a book tour right now. His name's Colton Scribner. He's a professor from ASU who has written a book called Morbidly Curious about why we look at stuff like this and what it is in us that makes us need to address this type of subject matter. And one of the things he talks about is in the animal world something called predator inspection, which is something that animals do to identify if they need to flee. And I think that was one of my goals at working on something like this, especially the way Patrick wanted to approach it, which was from the perspective of, essentially from the victims, these people whose lives had encountered Gacy's, and to kind of explore not just the darkness of a person who could do things like this, but a system that is set up in such a way that allows it to happen and continue to happen over and over and over again. So to play Bill and to get a chance to be involved in the story, to be involved with these incredible actors, as soon as I heard Chernus was playing this role, I was like, this is role of a lifetime. And Michael is my lucky charm, because every show I've ever been a regular on, he's been in. So I just follow him around and hope that there's a big.
We're just constantly asking each other what the others want.
Yeah. Yeah. So if Michael's working, I'm working. So yeah, I was very excited to be a part of it.
Michael Chernus speaking of Michael Chernus, he couldn't be here. Can you talk a little bit about casting him and what direction you gave him? Because obviously it's a challenging role to play.
I mean, look, once I knew that Michael was even interested, it was a foregone conclusion. We met with some amazing actors, right? Like really, truly great actors for the role. But Michael, it was a couple things. First of all, his body of work speaks for itself. So just shove that aside, because that's obvious, right? His talent speaks for itself. So put that aside. The thing that was so instrumentally important to pulling off Gacy was that you could not see him coming, right? And for whatever reason, by his very nature, that is Chernus, right? Like he's just affable and charming and fun and funny, and he's just the kind of guy that you want to hang out with. And one of the problems that we had in the writer's room, one of the problems I had alone when I was first writing it, was that I just didn't believe Gacy. Right? I didn't believe that this person could actually exist, right? That every time I wrote a line of dialogue for him, it was the opposite of what you would think you would write for a serial killer, right? And especially a serial killer knowing knowing what he actually did in hindsight. And so one of the main challenges in our early conversations with Chernus was just landing that same concept with him, right? And he talks about this, so I'm cribbing from him, where he says, he's like, his instinct was to play this other thing, and he claims I said this, and I don't think I did say this, so I think he's
not here, so just take credit.
Yeah, no, it's taking credit is a very hard thing for me. But like he claims that I said to him that it would be a disservice to the memories of the victims to not play it this way, because and if I did say it, I'm awesome. But I kind of think he just came there on his own. That but it's true in its spirit, which is that like these are young boys and young men, and also neighbors and people from the town and in the city, that they had beers with him and they wanted jobs from him and they went home with him and they did all these things with him. And if he were playing it from a perspective of seeing it come from predator, right? Seeing the predator come from a million miles away, then it's a disservice to their memory. And so really what Chernus landed on, and what is so brilliant about his performance in this episode and beyond, was just this person that you would never see it coming. And I think that just by his very nature, he is that way, meaning Chernus, so it just sort of exuded, it came out of him. But I will say that, very, very quick anecdote, super quick anecdote. We were doing rehearsals in Toronto before we started shooting. We'd been there for a few weeks, and there was this one rehearsal we were doing for his first murder, which you end up seeing in episode 6. And I had only up until that point in time, for months on end, seen Michael be like the charming, affable Gacy. And we were in this little conference room. Couch was set up. The young man that was playing Tim McCoy was seated ahead of him like this because he was eating, and Michael was behind him, staring at him. And it was the first time that anyone had seen Michael turn into the killer, and it was the subtlest. I mean, I'm like, genuinely, I have goosebumps thinking about this moment because I hadn't seen it yet. And it was just this subtle look that he gives out of the corner of his eye as this young man is like sitting in front of him eating a sausage, right? And all of us, it was Ashley Michael Hoban, who was a writer and director, Madhu Garba, who was a writer and producer on the show, and myself were sitting in the back of the room watching it, and we all had the exact same reaction. We all stared at each other going, oh my God, this is the most terrifying fucking thing that we'd ever seen. Excuse me, I'm from New Jersey. It's the most terrifying thing that I'd ever seen. And I will say that it stuck the landing of what we were intending to do, which is we never show a murder. There's not a single murderer that is on screen in our show. And some of our criticism has been that we're like true crime light. And I would say that's the opposite, because your imaginations fill in everything. And that moment of that rehearsal, like, clicked, where we said, okay, this is going to work. And it's absolutely a horrifying show without having to see any of the actual murders.
Right, isn't that the point? I know.
We're trying.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
Moving on. I want to talk about the research process, because obviously you're dealing with real people. We were talking a little bit about this backstage. Some of you have been reached out to by the real people. How did you balance the research with the reality of knowing that these are real lives that you're talking about? Gabriel, do you want to start?
Yeah. So we had spoken before we went in to the point that we were approaching it from a somewhat fictional kind of perspective, obviously based on true events, but because my first instinct was to run out and find Rafael Tovar and talk to him. He's from Crystal City, Texas. I knew that he lived in Kerrville, which is just outside of Austin, Texas, where I'm from. So my intention was to go find him. Patrick was like, just hold on that. There's a lot of there's some of this that is an amalgam of others' experience, so I just don't want there to be any cloudy kind of creative input kind of questions. And so I held back and relied heavily on all the interviews that I have of him, all the photographs I could unearth, and just his you see a picture of him and it's kind of all there, it's just like badass leather trench coats and big Fu Manchu mustache, and he's got long hair. Everyone else is in suits, and he looks like he's like the lost member of the Ramones. and it's just, I was like, all right, I kind of get this. I knew that he was former Vice. I knew that he was from Texas, had went to Chicago to they were recruiting bilingual cops, and he became a cadet there. And so I just kind of relied on what the instinct of it, what I believed it would be for some. He's a bit of an outsider, and I think that he carried that into his vigilance and his crusade to kind of help these families identify the kids and to take the Chicago PD and all the people who would kind of shortchange these victims, take them to task, because he understood what it is to be kind of the other, and so all that came together, and ultimately I received the response I wanted and hoped, was that the families would see this and just be proud, or at least come close to what his experience and what his contribution to this case was. And his daughter reached out to me. Her name's Laura Canales, and she found me on Instagram and wrote me this beautiful message about how it was kind of surreal to see her father depicted this way, and how the spirit of him was there. And So I reached out. I was like, I'm coming home to Austin for Christmas, and I'd love to see him because I knew he had a stroke recently, a couple years ago, and I would, and I'd just love to sit with him for a while, just talk about the family, to talk about you guys, and much less so about the case, because there's been quite a bit said about it, and she's like, no, I love that here, and she just sent me all these photos of him and his son Rodney, who was depicted in our show by a young man named Desmond, who played me, a young me, in FUBAR that we also did in Toronto. So I feel, much like Chris and Michael, I feel a responsibility to remain employed so that the other could work. But these beautiful photographs of him and his son, who passed away at a very young age, but they're all private. They're these personal family kind of photos, and just to see those images, the style, the 70s, all of that, it just makes me so proud of what we did, and our production design team, our direction, everything, because it was all just right square on the head of the nail. And yeah, it was a long one. Sorry, guys. What time is it? Oh, we're done. It's all the time we
No,
have.
I like when you talk for a long time. It means that I don't have to talk.
Oh no, you have to talk.
I had not met Sam until about 2 weeks ago. We FaceTimed for the first time. Again, his wife reached out to me, and then he reached out to me. But I'll save that for later. But when I first spoke to Patrick, one of the first things we spoke about was the fact that nobody here was, he didn't find it important to his vision and the tone of the story to, do quote unquote impersonations of the people that we're portraying. It's such a delicate balance when you're working on something that has so much notoriety and so much sensationalism attached to it. So many people know about it. I didn't know about it. I didn't know a lot about it, and there's miles and miles and miles and miles worth of material that you can sift through, and then it's fascinating, and it's devastating, and it's interesting, and it all kind of gives you a sense of what really happened. But one of the reasons when I spoke to Patrick, I said, do you think I should reach out to Sam? And he said, again, I don't need you to. I don't need you to, to pin yourself to Sam in any kind of way. And what I took from that was, yeah, we're trying to capture essence. We're trying to capture spirit, and we're also playing in a band together. The show is not the movie's called, the show is not called Devil in Disguise, Sam Amaranti Story. It's about...
That's season 2.
That's season 2. We are working on that. It's the focus is on the victims and the victims' families. And so, we don't, in trying to create Sam to the T, if I walked around with his afro that he had when he was younger, I would have looked like Sean Penn in Carlito's Way, which it would have been weird. It would have just been a weird choice.
There are certain historical truths that are just unbelievable.
Exactly.
You just look at the hairstyle, you're like, no one will ever believe that a human being had that haircut.
But as you start to do more research, as you start to learn about these people and become your own investigator, there are certain things that that feel important. Like, to me, how Sam sounded felt important, and how Sam carried himself felt important. Those felt like emotional pillars to the character that I wanted to hit. Not because Patrick asked me to, but upon learning about Sam, those were just things that I felt important. And so, cut to 2 weeks ago when Sam was like, how you never met me. How did you know me so well? I was like, well, Sam, you did do a lot of interviews. And you wrote a novel, and you're in every documentary there is about John Gacy. So, your stuff is out there. He's like, I never told this to anybody, but, Gacy wasn't scary. That's what was scary about him. I was like, no, I have heard that one from you before. You've said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's sort of, again, you're always, I was always just kind of following Patrick and exactly what his vision was, and it was finding your own way in.
We have clips from the 90-minute Zoom that you guys had, right? Let's show those. Yeah, they were.
Me with an afro.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think of this one? Yeah, I don't know.
I don't sound like that.
They never do. They never think that they sound like that.
Yeah, the research was plentiful, and what was really helpful for Bill Conklin passed away a couple of years ago. But the documentary was very helpful in just. There were 2 or 3 moments in that documentary where you just understand this guy's attitude about everything, like not just this case, about life, and so that was those moments are what I used for any kind of information about how I approached these scripts. But yeah, just chasing these guys around mostly.
Patrick, again, not to make you talk about someone who isn't here, but Marin Ireland did such a great job of representing.
She's terrible.
I know.
She's awful. Yeah. Don't make me talk about her. Yeah.
But again, because the show is so centered on the victims
Mm-hmm.
and how the impact on the victims, can you talk about what she represented and in terms of the victims and how the John Gacy's crimes impacted the lives of so many?
Yeah, I mean, we had very little on Elizabeth Peace. The Peace were very, very private. We knew one very specific thing, which is that they had sued for, I think, like $85 million for damages on behalf of the families. They were suing law enforcement in general. And so we knew they were fighters, right? We knew that they showed up in court every single day during the trial. So we had that. We had little bits and pieces, like you see in the. We knew about everything around the pharmacy. We knew that they had actually gone out with their dogs in order to go and search for Rob. Like these little bits and pieces of things, and then the rest of it was. We all talk about being family members, right? Like a lot of it was you just putting yourself in the place, like knowing these little puzzle pieces, just putting yourself in the place of being a human who wanted to find your child, right? And I'm only talking about Elizabeth Peast. We had lots of information about some of the other family members that came out of depositions, that came out of testimony, that came out of interviews that were done through newspapers at the time, and so we were able to piece together a lot of information around a bunch of the other family members, quite frankly, and the Peace were one that we really didn't have a lot on. And so Elizabeth, because I wrote only the pilot, but for me, I was trying to put myself in the place of number one, what would happen if my child went missing, and I knew that they went searching for their kid, right? So that became a big clue for me. And then part 2, and this was actually weirdly controversial at the development phase of the pilot, was I also, like that, I think the first thing I wrote in the pilot was the scene with Kozenzak when her husband, when Harold is speaking for her, even though he wasn't there. And I had originally written the entire opening with Harold speaking for his wife, and then trying to confirm pieces of information with her because he had no idea what he was talking about, just as like a snapshot of time that I think is also all too relevant today of men speaking over women. But it became like this point of contention within the script phase, because I wanted to make a statement about A, time, and B, this thing, right? Because she was the person who was there. And Marin auditioned. She did 2 scenes. She did that scene where she had like one line of dialogue, and I just wanted to see what she did without saying a thing, right? Which I think these gentlemen will probably attest to that old adage, which is the hardest part of acting is not saying anything, right? Mm-hmm. And she just was glorious. I mean, it was just unbelievably heartbreaking to watch her do nothing and do everything at one time. And then the other scene that she did was the scene where she challenges, she finally speaks to Kozenzak in her living room and says, now that I did something, now you come. And we auditioned her on Zoom, and she got off. And I've never, all due respect, guys, sorry, I've never picked up the phone and called the head of casting ever. And I called Grace Wu. She's brilliant. She's an amazing collaborator. I've loved her for many, many years. And I called Grace and I said, Grace, I don't want to hear anything. I was like, you guys just watch this tape and then let me know that she's approved. And literally like 7 minutes later, she's like, oh, that's it. And it was that scene was just, we were crying, like we were genuinely crying. We had our cameras off and we were crying over that scene. So Marin may have had the hardest job of the entire cast over the course of the show.
Marin was the soul of the whole thing. Chernus is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Marin was the soul. And from the table read,
Oh yeah.
she set the bar at the table read. Like she set the bar, the whole tone. She was, you talk about weeping, just weeping, grieving, mourning, just
The whole time.
everything, just boom, right there in this banquet hall at the hotel.
She really scared me.
Yeah.
There's a scene later where Sam has courtroom scene. He has like a 2-page long monologue and she doesn't say anything. And I remember doing rehearsal and looking at her once during rehearsal and thinking, nope, can't do that. Can't.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
No. I mean, I don't think Sam would look anyway, but it's such a force and a presence.
Yeah, I called her as soon as I was done with the 8 episodes and kind of fanboyed on her performance because she's doing things in these few episodes that I've never seen done before. She's making, from an actor's perspective, it was a very actor on actor type conversation where I was like, I learned something about my work from watching her live in this woman. It was really incredible. It's really incredible.
The end of episode 2, which if you haven't seen it, I hope you will continue to watch. But the end of episode 2, originally in my first cut, was it didn't go to you and Chernus and Badge in where he goes, I want to draw the map, right? It went out on her challenging Kozenzak at the door, and then she just closed the door and we smashed to black. Yeah. And it was just like, I'm a little peeved that I got forced to have to do the other thing because when you see it, this performance at the door at the end of episode 2 is extraordinary. It's unbelievable. Anyways, we love her. Yeah, she's amazing.
We got to where I needed you to go. So
Yeah. She's
that was
amazing.
the point.
Yeah.
Because I do think she very much she gives a heart to this in so many ways. So now that we fanboyed on Marin, I want you all to fanboy on each other or on another moment of the show that you just think from anyone else's performance. Chris, do you want to start?
I mean, I'm your biggest fan. I don't know if you know this. We're friends, we're buddies, we've worked together quite a bit, but Michael has been working in our business since before he was alive. He's a legend, right?
We were just talking backstage. He was when he was a kid, he was in a commercial with Sting, the wrestler. And I just ran across it on YouTube by accident. I was like, look at that little face. I know that guy. I texted him straight to him. I was like, who's this?
It's my favorite thing I've done.
I love the game a long time.
And I've had so many chances to work with you,
but never together.
Right.
Also. Really.
Right.
Never in the same scenes together.
And it was all together on this. And it was such a joy. And I'm so intimidated by you and so joyful at the opportunity to work with you.
I agree. I was so happy when we had real scenes together because it was, they're actors in this, and you get the opportunity to work with who you're like, they bring something out of you that another actor wouldn't. And I don't know if it's just our size difference. Which but or if it's just how well we actually get along and how long we've known each other for, but I feel bigger when I look at him.
I love watching you guys. We didn't work together quite a lot, but there was one scene I was shooting in the courthouse, and you guys had a scene out by the car, outside the courthouse.
Yeah.
And it was negative 25 degrees, and I was like, no, I'm going to go out and just watch this, because every time you guys were working, yeah, you're right. It has this like David and Goliath kind of feel. You know, Kunkel's really well experienced and very super confident. And
Yeah.
Sam's just, he's just starting out, fighting his ass off, and you guys were great. I was watching you guys work.
And I think your performance in your role was the one I envied the most.
Yeah.
I watched when we did the table read. I was just watching. I have a few lines in the pilot, and I was happy to do it, but I was more annoyed that I had to act because I was so watching you and Badge kind of go tit for. It was we were just watching it. The tension was taut in those table reads, and you guys just it was like
The Badger. Should we talk about the Badger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
James
Badge
Dale.
man. Great guy. So good.
All right, well, Patrick, I'll let you have the final word. Was there, obviously this is really tough material, was there a moment where you thought, this is the scene that nails it, or this is the moment that nailed it?
That's really hard for me. It's a fair question, but it's like really, no, not because of that. I know that no, it's not because of that. So I'm right now writing another pilot, and I'm developing a pitch for another show, and I've got a season 2 of Devil in Disguise that we're in development on, and I just keep thinking of this group, like I will answer the question in a second, I promise, but I keep thinking of this group every time I write something, like, and I have a fantasy of this idea, and Ryan Murphy always beats me to the punch, but he truly beat me to the punch in this one, where like he has this troupe that he works with all the time of brilliant actors, and I sort of have this fantasy, and every time I write a character in the new pilot that I'm doing, or I'm thinking about Devil in Disguise 2 or whatever, I'm like, okay, what would Sully, what would Angarano, what would each of them be in this? How can I make it happen? So the truth is, and I mean it, like I would love to keep this family together in some way, shape, or form. I joke that I've had lots of directors and lots of writers come back and work with me, but no actors, which I think maybe is telling me something. But I would love this group to come back, and I hope that I have the opportunity to work with all of them again, and I'd love to work with them together. I will answer the question, but it has nothing to do with any of the top 6. There's a moment in episode 2, which is the moment that we first introduced the short stories of the victims, that I've watched this show so many times in the edit and beyond, and every episode over 100 times for sure over the course of the last 8 months in post. And there's a moment in episode 2 in which Levi Shelton, who plays Johnny Sick, who's the first victim that we explore, I'm not spoiling anything. He is getting, his best friend is putting makeup on his face. He is struggling with his identity. And there's this brilliant moment in which his friend asks him, says to him, okay, either Bozo the Clown, or, I've seen it 800 times, and I can't keep saying Ziggy Stardust. And we don't see what he sees, but he sees his reflection in the aquarium, wearing makeup, finding his true self for the first time. And there's just this beautiful moment that this young actor does where he sees himself for the first time. And there's a smile, and there's a joy, and it buried underneath that smile and that joy is tragedy, because he knows that this is probably for one night only. And it gets me every single time. And for reasons that I can very much explain, that moment is the show, right? Like that moment is what we were trying to accomplish, which is to bring a handful of these young boys and men to life. And I don't know, it's a brilliant little moment of a performance. It gets to the heart and the soul of what the show was supposed to be. It's what I wish more people would tune in and see, because I think, as I said at the top, this is a really special show, and not enough people have seen it. We need more.
Well, they're all going to go home and watch it now. Thank you so much.